Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Halley Wright, team leader here out of Long Beach Coastal. Thank you so much for hopping on with us this morning because we do have a very special treat with a very special guest. I'm excited to introduce and reintroduce to most of you guys Allison Van Wig, who is a top producer out of the Long Beach office and realtor extraordinaire. I'm really excited to have her share her knowledge and experience with us because it is plentiful. So good morning. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So Allison, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your relationship with real estate. How'd you get started? Where'd you come from?
So I used to own a ski shop, backpacking, rock climbing. So then, that's retail. So you work weekends as well. And when I got out of that, I've always been interested in real estate. So I decided, I bought my first home, and at the time I was like an assistant at a real estate office, and the agent didn't really have an interest in helping us. We could only, now remember this was 88, okay, full disclosure here. We could only afford 120. And so I would look at the board and say, well, what about that one? Oh yeah, you don't want that one. So I'd look at the board every day and just go drive by the houses myself. And then I ended up picking a realtor in the office, and I picked him because I thought, well, he hasn't had a deal all year. He needs money. But I found out why he didn't have a deal all year, because, he was never available by phone. The first home we bought, we ended up losing it after like 2 days before we were supposed to close. It went to foreclosure. So we lost that home. So then we had to start the process all over. Oh. So then, it was just a nightmare for about 4 months. And Paul's my husband. He's like, you could do a better job than this. Because I've always been interested in real estate ever since I was like 17. I'd be in the car on a Saturday or Sunday with my boyfriend, and it's like, oh, stop at this open house. Why? We can't afford it. Oh, I just want to see it. Let me calculate how much I need to buy it. And I always wanted to have real estate. I read that book when I was probably 15, Rich Man, Poor Man. And if you haven't read that, that is one of your most valuable books you could read, because it will change the way you think. And if the younger you can get your kids to read it, the better it will be for them as far as like investing in real estate. And I'm a true believer. The thing is, people will say, oh, the market's not good, the market's this, the market's that. Everybody always has to have a place to live. So there will always be buyers and sellers out there. You just have to go find them. But that book just changed the way you think of investments and money and things like that.
Allison,
so,
an interesting
then
story.
I got my license.
You got your license, and then what was the next step for you?
The next step is I don't know if a long time ago, there used to be Tarbell Realtors, and they were the only ones that sent me a handwritten card. And I thought, oh, look, they want to hire me. Because when you first get your license, you have no idea how it works. So you're like, right, I wonder if they'll want to hire me. So I had called a couple of places, and luckily they didn't return my phone call, because you always have to, you can't try too hard. You have to kind of follow your destiny, I think. So, hey, they returned my call. I got an interview, started working there, had no idea what I was doing. It's a really weird feeling, because your first 3 or 4 months, I feel like all you're doing is spending money, but nothing is coming in. Mm. And you have no idea how you're going to get a client. And yet the agents that are around you seem to be busy. Like at the time, we didn't have private offices. We had cubicles, I guess. So even the busy office agents that were making a lot of money were just working in their cubicle. So they're on the phone and everything. And it's like you're sitting at your desk because you're trying to see what you're supposed to do. But it's like, who are they calling? Like, there was absolutely no training. And so I literally thought at the time we had phone books, so I just started calling out of the phone book. And we didn't have computers. We had like a teletype machine. So it would just type out 3 bedrooms. You had no idea if there were 1,200 or 1,800 square feet. And then the book came out. So I would just browse a book at night and kind of try to learn prices and go visit houses that were vacant and hold open houses. And I had a really hard time getting my first buyer. And this agent that was seasoned threw this note on my desk and said, well, you're new. This isn't worth anything. See what you can do with this. And it's like, oh, look at that. They can afford $120,000, exactly what Paul and I could afford. And I called them and took them out. And a couple weeks later, I wrote it on the board. And Eva is like, oh, my God, did you actually sell them something? And so that was my first sale. And it was probably 7 or 8 months in. And so the money was very special. And I think, you know, you've got to remember when you're mentoring some of these new agents that it's like the money is very hard because you're spending so much going out, and we forget what it's like to be new. And then I realized I needed to, like, just, you know, you pass the test and you think, oh, I have my real estate license, but you really don't know anything. But I think when you first start those first 2 or 3 months, that's when the reality of not knowing comes in, because they don't teach us how to do a presentation. They don't teach us how to be good or listen to people or anything like that. So I chose someone in the office, and they were actually they were a teacher, and they did real estate part-time. And back in 88, they were probably making $60,000, which was a lot of money back in 88 for a part-time teacher, and he was making that in real estate. So I told the office manager, I want to sit next to him. There's a vacant cubicle there. Well, why do you want to change? Because I want to hear everything he's doing. And I just sat next to him, listened to everything he's doing. I asked him, I said, oh, where did you get those numbers from? And, you know, you could buy numbers at the time. So we got the thing. And as we gradually, like now we have so many resources available to us. So we just we recently got RedX, because that has kind of, you know, with the market slowing down a little bit, I feel like any time you have where you're not getting a listing, then it's like, well, let's get on and do some of these programs to find, like, there's RedX and there's Revo Gateway. So you can find people that have recently died in your area, filed for divorce, not making their payments, you know, they have a notice of default. So that business is going to come back. Right now, the people that have died or, you know, getting a divorce, that business is there. So you need, in your spare time now that we have a little bit of a slowdown with the buyers, it's like, let's go after that. So there's always, like, we're so at an advantage now because the information is at our fingertips. You know, before we would have to go knock on their door because we couldn't just Google the phone number or Google it's like we use Spokio, so we get a lot of or Fast People Lookup, we get a lot of our phone numbers from there. But the technology, the other day I was looking at a program and it has artificial intelligence and it was writing property descriptions. And it's like, wasn't perfect, but I could see in 3 or 4 years where it's like, it's going to be. So I feel like learn everything you possibly can about marketing, pulling yourself forward. And there isn't any one particular way to do business, but you do have to have 4 or 5 avenues. Like I hear people say, I only work by referral. And it's like, I think that's great for like maybe 70% of your business, but it's like, I think you've got to do something else. So you've got to call around your listings, or maybe you're mailing around your listings, or maybe you're door knocking, or maybe you're going after expireds for sell by owners, people that have had, you know, divorce, whatever. But you got to have 4 good ways of getting business. Because if you're referral only and you get a lot of buyers right now, all of a sudden your business is going down. So let's pump it up. Let's keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long question for the first question, right?
No, I love it. I'm like, you started touching on these topics that I was so excited to talk about. And I mean, Allison, you got, first of all, amazing backstory, and thank you for sharing it with everyone. And I think some of the things that I heard you say in there was that I recognized was that you never waited for somebody to give you permission to succeed in your business, right? Where you had found resources to be able to support the things that you needed and created those opportunities for yourself. And I think that that's an important mindset.
When I look back at that, okay, one of the reasons I succeeded is I had no money. Okay, so it's like I wasn't going to eat. I wasn't going to be able to pay my rent or my house payment if I didn't work and if I didn't make it work. And it's like, when you have no options, I feel like you're a lot more motivated. And one of the things that I'm teaching my nieces and nephews, and, you know, one of my nephews is now 28 years old, and it's like, we've always had this ever since he was, you know, he came and worked with me for a couple of years, but make yourself broke. So those of you that have, you know, 50 grand in the bank in your savings account, go ahead and put it in mutual funds or something and only leave like 10K in there so that you're suddenly motivated to like work. Don't have 50K in credit card debt and 50K in the bank. It's making you too comfortable. Leave your 10K in the bank and pay 40,000 off on your credit cards. And right now, you should be paying everything you can to do in your bills so that when the market drops, you have money to market, because you've got to market yourself. So you've got to make sure that your financial house is really good. But if you put that money away where you can't touch it, and you know, like, the best tool we have as realtors is opening a simplified employee pension plan, a SEP they call it, because that's going to save you a ton of money on your taxes. And it's like, every year I put a hunk in that SEP, and it's like buy property, whatever. Make yourself broke, but don't make yourself broke buying a fancy car and having a ton of credit card debt. Make yourself broke by putting your money in mutual funds, stocks, houses, whatever. Try to, you know, my goal before, because remember, I came from a market where when we first started, interest rates were 12%. So my goals before were to pay down a property that I would buy. Like, any time I got a rent increase on that property, just pay it towards principal. Now my goals have changed, because it's like, in the last 3 or 4 years, we should have been able to refinance and get those great 3% rates. So it's like, I'm not paying off a 3% mortgage. I'm going to put it in mutual funds, because if interest rates go to 7 or 8, mutual funds going to be making 4 or 5 at least. So it's like, you got to kind of, I'm still paying off that house, but instead I'm putting it in mutual funds so that when I retire, if I want to take that 100 grand off and pay off the house, I can. But if it's making me 800 and the house payment's 400, then it's like, hey, you've got some gravy there. So the biggest thing I think is always don't get too comfortable. You know, don't let that money of the 50K stay in the bank, and then you've got credit card debt and everything else. Get it so that you're broke again and you work. Because when you have no money and you see that house payment coming in, you're like, geez, I got to make that house payment in 3 months. I'll be out. And I don't want to pull from my mutual funds, because once you put it in there, you kind of want it to stay in there. Well, then you better work. And I think, Tim, the biggest thing I think is we get too comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Allison, what a great, what a great point. I think it's important that as money ebbs and flows, especially looking into what we're seeing being a shifting market, and I want to get your opinion on that in a second, it's important that we're, really in tune with our financial structure, our expenses, because that's a part of preparing yourself for whatever's on the next side. So you touched a little bit on this about the market and the shift. Where do you see the market going in the next year, and then maybe the next couple years? And what are you telling your clients when they're asking this question?
So from a listing standpoint, it's you're looking at comps from 6 months. Stop doing that. Look at your comps from the last 2 months. It's okay to look at the 6 months, but the ones to focus on the client with are 2 months. When your market shifts, suddenly solds aren't as important as active, pendings, and just closed, because they reflect what the market is doing now. I don't think our market is going to crash. I do think we might have a 5% price correction. And, I was in the office with Tim yesterday and we were running some numbers, because he's like, well, do you think I think that you should buy anytime you're ready to buy, because we certainly aren't going down on interest rates. So what if, your customers are busy saying, hey, these are the highest interest rates. What if these are the best interest rates? What if 5 years from now we say, shoot, I should have bought when it was 5%,
right,
because now it's 7%. And it's like, with inflation, a lack of housing, our prices may come down, maybe 5%, because as you see, like, if we go from 5 to 6%, we're probably going to have a price correction because affordability becomes a problem. But when you do the payments, if you take say a $700,000 home with 20% down, and right now the payment is like 4%, if you raise it and you go to 7% interest, that payment with the same down payment is going to be about 5%. So if you take it down 50 or 60,000, if you correct it 7 or 8%, it'll be the same payment. I don't think it's coming. I think we're going to see a correction of 5 to 10% maybe, but that's going to be over a 2 to 3 year period as interest rates rise. And maybe it has a 30% chance of happening, because like, you see gas prices have fluctuated. They've come down a little, but they're not down $4 a gallon.
right.
So it's like, and that was, that's been 4 months or so. So it's like, I feel that we'll have a slight correction if the interest rates keep going. But it won't matter anyway, because what I was saying to a client the other day was, we're not moving in 3 years. Okay, we're moving in 5 to 7. So it's like, if we're moving in 5 to 7 years, chances are that correction has already occurred, or you've paid your principal down enough because your interest rate is lower, or you're not moving because you're like, I have 5% interest, or you're keeping that house as a rental because 5% will never come back, and you're buying the house at 7%, and it's like, it's okay. Either way, it's going to be fine, because the reason, we'll have a little bit of inflation, that means that the hardest thing, I think, when you've been around for a while, is that you can't believe that you're selling a $700,000 house and their payment's going to be $4,500 a month.
Right.
And you're like, for that area, are you kidding me? But then you get on and you look at the rents in that area, and the rents are 35, 38. So at 4,500 with a tax deduction, you're actually the same or less, and you're paying yourself off. You own your own home. It's a forced savings account. So do you want to be subject to these rents that keep going up? And it's only going to get worse. I don't care. It's like, you look at this affordable housing and the ADUs they're putting in. The ADUs are market value or higher because they're new. That's not affordable housing. So it's not getting any better. Affordable housing is probably buying your own house, so your payment's locked in and you can start paying yourself. That's affordable housing. So it's like, you have to convince your client and give them the reasons why now is a good time to buy. It is a good time to buy anytime you can afford to buy. Even when the interest rates were 12%, it was a good time to buy, because that was 88. You know what's sad is, probably 5 years ago, and I haven't seen her lately, but for about 12 years, this lady kept coming into my open houses. I'm waiting for the market to go down. I'm waiting for the market to go down. This was from like 2009, right? And the market did go down. In 10 and 11, we had those crashes and there was tons of short sales. It was a time where 9 of the 10 properties you were showing were short sales. Like, every market is different. We had the market where we had to do the COVID forms. We hated. Well, guess what? We had the market where we had to show the short sales. We hated. Because short sales would take 4 months to close. And it's like, if you had 9 or 10 to show, it's like, well, you were probably selling a short sale. But look at all those people that bought. But this lady kept coming into the open house waiting for the prices to go down or the interest rates to go down. And it's like, last time she came into my open house, the price had probably tripled since she started looking. And I said, you have to buy now. And she said, I'm waiting for the market to change. I'm like, the market has changed. And look where you would have been if you had bought 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sad, because buying real estate is one of the most powerful wealth things that you can do. If you can just get your clients to buy real estate, pay it off in 30 years. Even if they don't save a dime, that's a forced retirement. They could think about them selling that house and going to one of those 55 communities and pocketing half the money in the bank to live on. Like, they are so way set. So much of our population has nothing, and they're relying on Social Security. If we could just get them to buy a house, it can change their life.
You speak so passionately. I love it. You can see it and it resonates, with you, Allison, and your words. I think it's really important that we keep all that into perspective, because sometimes it can feel like Chicken Little, like the sky is falling when people talk about a shift. But truly, you've been through multiple markets, ups and downs. Has there ever truly been a perfect market? It's like people are waiting for something. It's like this.
I guess the perfect market was when we didn't see it. The perfect market was really 11 and 12, because they could buy a house for $400,000, right? But it was all short sales, and we didn't see it as a perfect market. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 years ago was the perfect market, because it was 3% interest, and we missed it. It was the perfect market. Oh, well, wait, maybe they'll go lower. What? They're going to be negative interest rates? Like, when you look back in time, it was always a perfect market, because it's like 15 years ago, you could have bought that house for $500. That's now $1 million.
Can I have the receipt?
It's like, well, that was a perfect market. Right now could be the perfect market, because people look back and say, shoot, I should have bought it 5% instead of 7%.
Yeah, I know. It's always one of those, hindsight is 2020. And I feel that you really have found the way to always make sure that you're, placing your knowledge and your skill set to be able to find a way to benefit the client. And I think if we move forward in that way with a servant heart, we're always going to find a way to be able to succeed, because there's always someone that's going to need help, right?
Right.
Right. I love that.
People always have to have a place to live. Your
Yes.
job is to find them. People always want to sell, move up, retire, died. I know it sounds terrible, but it's like, we're all going to go there one day. Yep. So it's like, we're just doing a job. They need to hire somebody. Why can't they hire you? Because you are motivated and you're going to do a good job for them.
Mm-hmm. Allison, you have
to go after it.
You have the best tagline. I saw in one of your marketing pieces that talking about, I don't want to butcher your tagline, but talking about you're interviewing for the job, or you're the best hire, or I know who I work for, or something. And I thought that was really unique, because
if you want to make the best move of your life, let me work for you.
There we go. Thank you. And it just shows that servant client minded mindset is really going to continue to help your business grow. So I love that. One more question, because I know people want to hear this. So Allison, you're juggling lots of things. I'm sure you've honed some productivity skills or things that you do to be able to stay productive, or programs that you're using. Any that you'd like to share with us right now?
We love Follow Up Boss. That's the best CRM. It can tell you like where their Facebook page is. It can tell you, it's just the easiest we found, and it's easy to see what everybody's doing on it. So we like it. I would say that is probably our number one thing. And then probably, we use Google Sheets a lot, because we can put the properties that are coming up on there. and so the team can see it. We use Dropbox a lot. I think that being technology savvy will really help you in this business. And it's like, if you're going to learn one thing, it's like learn how to use Dropbox, because you can send links to your clients with photos, because sometimes they want their photos of their property. And it's like, I just, you can use it on your iPad. Somebody says, oh, do you have this contract with you? You can pull it up on your iPad if it's in Dropbox. So I think that Google Sheets is wonderful, especially if you have a team to share it. But even if you're not a team, it's like Jane is my assistant. She has full access to Google Sheets. So it makes our life a lot better. We can put our pictures in Dropbox and then share with whoever we want. So I think that that's very valuable. And, you've got to have a great listing presentation. And it's like, we were all ready to go. We had it online as well. So when COVID hit, it didn't make any difference. And it's like, if you have, you should be ready. I think that the stronger your listing presentation is, the easier it is for you to knock on doors, because you have something to offer that person. And it's like, you're not knocking on the door saying, oh my God, if they ask me to come and give a presentation to sell their house, what am I going to say? So you don't knock on the door. You don't make the phone call. Make yourself strong in the marketing department so you know what you're going to do for those people. Then go knock on those doors with confidence.
That's a great tip, Allison. Thank you. Any last words you'd like to leave everyone with?
I would read the Go-Getter book.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will help in this business, because I think the hardest thing about this business is all of the stuff we do for free.
Right.
You're not really, it is. It's like, I had listed a home 2 times this year. It actually happened to me. And, but recently she's like, well, don't you remember me? I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember you. Like, I don't remember her, right? And she's like, oh yeah, it's like, you helped me a long time ago. Oh, okay, great. And then like a week or so later, she's on the phone with me, and it's like, we're going through something for like tax information for her CPA. And she's like, oh yeah, it was 19 years ago when, I bought it from my husband. You helped me. So she's listing with me now because they wanted to sell the house. And I said, well, you know what? It's better if you buy him out, because you can keep the property tax base, et cetera. And that's why she's listing with me now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you expected me to remember you from 19 years ago? But people don't forget. When you help them out, they don't forget. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be future business. We think we're working for free sometimes, but it will come back around for you.
I love that. Thank you again, Allison, for joining me and for sharing everything. This was amazing. I know everyone here on the call, we appreciate your leadership and insight. You guys have a wonderful Friday. Go out and implement some of these things. Allison talked about amazing concepts. Go back and re-listen. I know if you have any questions, she is also a very generous person with her thoughts. So reach out to her, and I'm sure she'd be happy to elaborate. Have a good Friday. Make it productive.
Thank you, Halley. Thank you, Allison.
You are welcome. I will put my email address in the chat right now. And if you have questions, feel free to email me or call me. I'm fine on the phone as well.
And I just want to add that besides the fact that Allison Van Wig is a fellow Capricorn mate, January 19th, she's really a professor. Like, we don't really get recognition by titles in like PhDs or whatever, but Allison, you master real estate in a different level of integrity, passion, and hunger to really educate and service the public in the 1% level. And that's what differentiates you mostly from most of the agents out there. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
I think that always remember that you're selling investments. Okay, so you really want to know as much as you possibly can about the investment you're selling. And when you're selling investments, you're trying to help them financially. So try to think, what is the best financial plan for them? Like, this lady could buy her husband out. That was a better financial plan for her. If she'd gone and rented at the time, her rent would have been more expensive than buying her husband out. So sometimes it'll come back around if you just help people.
That's a great one. Thank you guys. Thanks, Allison, again. This is awesome. Make sure you go back and watch the recording. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.